In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the throttle body on this Ford F-150 with the 5.4 liter V8. I want to take this out of the way, which is held on with two clamps, one over here and one over here. Use an 8mm socket, remove the clamp here. Well, don't remove it, but loosen it up so we can remove this. That much should be good. Move over here, loosen this one. You can also use a flathead screwdriver, as you can see, on both of them. And now I'm going to pull the intake tubing off of this part of the intake. Pull it up and out of the way, and give it a couple twists. That should break it free off of here. Pull this out of the way. Now we have to get this whole intake part out of the way. There's a 10mm bolt here. There's one on the back side underneath this air intake resonator, so we have to remove this, and there's two more 10mm on the other side, but we have to start here. So use your socket to take this one out. And then with a pair of pliers, we're going to have to squeeze this clamp so we can pull this off. Okay, this is a locking clamp, so once you open it up enough, it'll automatically lock in place and stay open. This will allow you to wiggle this right off of here, which will expose this rear 10mm bolt. So let's take that out while we're at it. And then there's two more on the other side. Next, let's remove this clip over here that holds the wire for the throttle body. Get a trim tool underneath and just pry it out. Okay, and then if you look up, I'll have this plastic hose here, this line. There's a green tab on it. If you press it outwards like this and then in towards the intake, it'll actually lock in the open position and you'll be able to release this. Now be careful, this doesn't bend. It pivots a little bit, but it is plastic, so don't move it too far or it'll snap. Two more 10mm bolts on this side. Now you can lift this up and wiggle it off of the throttle body. Let's take this off, two 8mm bolts. These are also the bolts that hold down the throttle body on this side. Pull those off. I'll just leave them in here, set this aside. Let's unplug this connector, lift up the locking tab, press on the other locking tab underneath it, and pull the connector off. There are two more 8mm bolts at the back here. There's one. And the second one. Lift up the throttle body gently because it still has one electrical connector on the back side over here. Pry this locking tab out, the red one. Press down, remove the connector, and there's your throttle body. If you have a lot of debris here, make sure you clean it up, but don't get it inside the intake. Try to brush it away. Mine's looking good. And the gasket, you can reuse these several times, and if it's still soft like this one and sticks out past the intake, you're good to go. If it's flat or brittle, definitely replace it because it will not seal. Having said that, take the throttle body, and before you put it down, don't forget to connect this electrical connector on the back side here because it's going to be quite difficult to do. Once this goes on, it actually sits very close to that part of the intake. Make sure it clicks and lock the locking tab, the red locking tab in. Slide this down here. And we'll start with the two rear bolts. Start them in by hand. Okay, that's one. And the second one. Let's put the two front ones in also. They come with the this vibration damper here. All right, so I got them all started. I'm just going to bottom this one out because it's fairly easy to thread in by hand. I might as well. And then I want to tighten them in a cross pattern. Of course, I'll torque this down, but even for snugging it up, I want to go in a cross pattern because I don't want to crush that gasket unevenly and cause it to not seal. Okay, and now let's torque them in the same cross pattern to 89 inch-pounds. 89 inch-pounds, like I said, if you don't have a torque wrench that goes that low, which by the way that converts to 7.4 foot-pounds, well, you can just turn them about 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn after they get snug. Going in a cross pattern, like I said. And as always on rubber gaskets, I like to go back over it, because sometimes as that rubber gasket squishes down, it'll loosen up that first bolt. All right, that's tight. Let's connect the electrical connector on this side. Make sure it clicks and lock it down with the red tab. Let's put this back on, make sure it slides over the throttle body and bottoms out completely. While I'm at it, I'm going to start the mounting bolts in so it stops moving around. Start the driver's rear mounting bolt, but remember that this first one here has to go over that resonator, so wait and do that last. We'll bolt these down first, snug it, and then put the resonator in, and then that goes on. But while we're here, let's connect these lines. Make sure this bottoms out all the way, and then make sure this tab locks in. And there was an electrical connector retainer here. Press this down, and now let's snug those bolts up. Make sure these are nice and snug. Okay, and now we can put this resonator on. Now let's get this back on. Make sure it's fully seated on there. And before I release this clamp, I'm going to slide the bolt in. That way I know it's all lined up. Snug this up while I'm at it. Make sure that's nice and snug. And to release this clamp, what you want to do is press down on the center part. A lot of times you can just tap it and it'll release. Sometimes you have to raise this up like that. Just depends on the tool you're using and the clamp. But basically this hook stops on this side of the clamp and you have to raise this side up and lower this one. Now let's put this part of the intake back on. Get it onto the air box first. Make sure it slides on and is completely bottomed out. As you can see, these two arrows need to line up. And over here, slide it over. Make sure this clamp is still properly secured on there. Let's tighten it up. Use your 8mm socket. And just make it snug. Don't make it too tight because these clamps do strip out. And if you break it, you'll need a new one. There we go. Do the same over here. Make sure this is still seated all the way. You don't want any air leaks. And there you have it.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.